Akotivach, this is Gemara Nedarim Daf Mem Vav. We're going to begin again from the Mishnah on Mem Hei Amid Beis to give us a bit of a running start to get into today's daf. So says the Mishnah back on Mem Hei Amid Beis, Hashutafim Shenadru Hana Zemizeh. We have partners that made a Neder Hana, partners that each one vowed that they themselves will not get benefits from the other. Now, what's the problem? I can't get benefit from you and you can't get benefit from me, but now we own the joint entity. We're partners. So can I enter into the field that we own together? Because by entering, I'm getting benefit from your field and you're getting benefit from my field. Says the Mishnah, says the Tanakama, the Shita, the Rabbanan, Asurin likanes l'chatzer. You can't enter in. Rav Elazar ben Yaakov Aimer. No. Each one is allowed to enter, and we view the entering as if you're entering into your own field. And as we pointed out in the previous year, 4 lines into the Ran, he points out that the big machlek is going on that we're going to delve very deeply into today. Is Rav Elazar ben Yaakov holds yesh breira. Retroactively, it's clarified that that area is yours. The example we gave in the previous year was that we have like this board, I'm blue and you're red, so the board is a combination of blue and red because we're partners. Yesh Breira says that when I step there, that area turns blue, and it was always blue. Hovra Davil Mafreya retroactively clarified that that area is mine, and therefore, according to Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, each of us is allowed to enter the field because we're each viewed as if we're entering into our own field. And now we turn over to Memvav Amid Aleph and says the Gemara, not the Gemara, we're still in the middle of the Mishnah. Continues the Mishnah. Ushneim, and both of these partners, Asurin Lahamid Rechayim V'Tanor Ulegadel Tarnegailim. Everyone agrees in the case of entering into the field was a machlaikas, but everyone agrees that neither of us is allowed to erect a rechayim, a millstone, a tanur, an oven, or to raise chickens within this area that is a joint entity. Even according to Elazar ben Yaakov, he only allows you to enter, but to actually go and put something there, to go set up shop in that area, that you're not allowed to do, because by doing that, you're getting benefit from the other person. Continues the Mishnah on the second line. If one of them is Maidir Ana from his friend, Lo Yikanes L'Chatzer, he cannot enter into that courtyard. Again, again, let's say Reuven and Shimon own a field, and I have a Neder Hana against Reuven. So the question is, can I go into this field that is jointly owned by Reuven and Shimon? Says the Tanakama, again, no. Says Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, the same halacha, that yes, I can enter into the field, and we view it as if I'm entering into the other person's courtyard. And I'm not entering into the one that I was menader hana from. But and the one that made the neder, we force him to sell his share of the courtyard. Force him to sell his share of the courtyard. And the Gemara is going to explain how this case is different than the previous case. In one detail, we can just mention that why over here is there a little bit of a different halacha. Because over here, I should really say it a little bit clearer. I went a job too far. It's not that I was Maidir Ana from Reuven or Shimon. It's Reuven and Shimon, and only one of them is Maidir Ana from another. Meaning, in case one of the Mishnah, Reuven and Shimon each answer themselves on the other. Case 2 over here is different. In this case, Reuven is asur to Shimon, but Shimon is not asur to Reuven. So now we have the same question. Is Reuven allowed to enter into this field because he's asur to Shimon? Chachamim say no. Rav Elazar ben Yaakov says yes. But it adds on the Mishnah that in this case, we force Reuven, he made his neder ana, to sell his field. Now, why are we forcing him to sell his field? So the Ran explains the reason being is because Reuven does not have full rights to this field. Shimon, yes, has full rights to this field. And therefore, we're worried that Reuven is going to see Shimon utilizing this field 100%, which Reuven doesn't have. Because again, Reuven has a neder enough from Shimon. And even according to Luzman Yaakov, it only allows you to enter into the field. So we're concerned that when Reuven sees Shimon utilizing the field 100%, he's going to come to violate his neder and benefit from Shimon. Therefore, we force Reuven to sell his field. Continues the Mishnah, Yacham and Ashok, Moider, Be'achad Mehem. This is the case I said before, I jumped the gun. Pardon. If one person from the street has a neder hana from either Reuven or Shimon, hana, loikan is the chatzar, again, that person cannot enter the chatzar. But Yaakov Eimer, again, you call Yachaloim l'toich shel chavercha, ani nechlas v'inu nechlas l'toich shelcha. So that's the first three cases of the Mishnah. Continues the Mishnah. Ha moider hana mechaveroi. Reuven has a neder hana from Shimon, v'yesh lo merchatz. Shimon owns the town Merchatz, the town bathhouse, or Ubeis Abad. Shimon owns the olive press. Muscharin Be'ir, the one that is leased out into the city. Now, the Ran learns that there's an extra caveat on this din that the Gemara doesn't really speak out 100%. The Ran learns that when we say it's Muscharin Be'ir, what's going on in this case is that there's a third party that has the ownership and the rights, I should say, of this bathhouse. Again, I make a neder, for example, from Reuven. Reuven owns the town bathhouse. So can I go take a bath? Says the Mishnah, the case is that Reuven himself doesn't have ownership. The town has ownership, and there's a third party in control. We'll see in the Gemara exactly the details. So, im yesh loy ba'en tfisas yad. If Reuven retains tfisas yad, Reuven retains a holding. He has a holding in it. What the Gemara will explain what that means. Then I cannot enter the field because I'm getting benefit from Reuven. Ein lan tfisas yad mutter. And finally, the final case of the Mishnah. So it makes a neder from his friend. A kaina, a neder that has the din of hektish, my entering into your house, I will not purchase from your field, if the person that you made the neder enough from sells it or gives it to someone else, then mutter. But again, we've seen such a scenario in the past. Over here, the neder is not against the person, it's against the item. I will not get benefit from this field, from this house. Then, also, even if he dies or sells it elsewhere, he's still forbidden. He's still forbidden from getting benefit. Why is he still forbidden from getting benefit? Because the neder is chal on the item. In such a scenario, the neder is not chal on the person. And the item, even after the person is nifter, the item stays the same, and therefore you cannot get benefits from it. So begins the Gemara on the bottom of Vav Amid Aleph. Ibayilahu, ask the Gemara fundamental shayla. Binadrai Paligi. The first case of the Mishnah was Binadroi. Each person, each partner made a neder from the next. Reuven says, I will not get benefit from you, Shimon, and Shimon says, I will not get benefit from you, Reuven. Each one vows a benefit from themselves on the other. Hediru zeh mai. Ask the Gemara, what if it's the flip? Not that I said, I will not get benefit from you. No. I said, you can't get benefit from me. And you said, you cannot get benefit from me. Is it the same case? Me, Amrinan, do we say, that the case in the Mishnah has been nadrai? Each one makes a neder onto themselves. But in a scenario that each one answers the other, maybe in such a scenario, the Rabbanan will agree to Yaakov that you're allowed to, yes, enter into the field. Why would this case be different? Because in this case, you're like an anus, you're forced. In the case of the Mishnah, where I made a neder, I'm not going to get benefit from you. And you made a neder, you're not going to benefit from me. So maybe only in that case, the Rabbanan said, we say, Ein Breira, therefore you can't enter the field. Because anytime you enter the field, it's as if I'm getting benefit from the other partner. But if I made a neder on you and you made a neder on me, maybe in such a scenario we could yes enter the field. Why? Because in this case, it's anusim, it's forced. I never answered myself. You answered me, and I answered you. So maybe in that case, the Rabbanan would agree to Vlad ben Yaakov that we would say Yesh Breira and we allow you to enter into the field. Or perhaps Rabbanan. Maybe it is the same case. So ask the Gemara fundamental Shaila, what is the din of the Mishnah? Din of the Mishnah Dafka bin Nadroi, when each one makes a neder on himself, or is the din of the Mishnah even by Heidiru, when each one makes a neder on the other person? Tashema, says the Gemara, 6 lines from the Banamav and Vavam and Aleph. Let's try to prove this case. The Mishnah said in the second case of the Mishnah, this is the case that I messed up, I missed, excuse me. If I made an neder from you, you didn't make an neder from me. It was one way. Then what was the halacha? Pli Rabbanan. And yet the Rabbanan said that there is a machlokes. Now in such a scenario, what was the wording of the Mishnah? Hayamudar hano mechaveroi. So the Gemara thinks that mudar means subject to an eder. Not that I said I am usher to you. No. That you said you were usher to me, and then it was one way. So the Gemara wants to prove from the word mudar in case number 2 of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara Tani nadur mechaverai hana. Change the word in the Mishnah, and there is no raya. Says the Gemara achinam mistavra, and the truth is, it's very logical to say that it's not mudar. It's not that I answered you, but rather it's that I answered myself. Why? The Katani Seifa, because the end of this second case of the Mishnah learned, we said again, I made a neder, I'm not going to get benefit from you, and you said nothing. So we said in that case, the Rabbanan said you can't enter, Vlad ben Yaakov said you could enter, but we forced me to sell my rights. So now says the Gemara, if the case is that I made myself usher, it's very good. Why? If the case is the Mishnah is nadar, 2 lines from the bottom. The case is that I made myself usher. Now I understand why I made myself usher. And now we have a concern that you're going to end up having too much benefit. So we say, you made yourself usher, you put yourself in a bad scenario, so we force you to sell your portion. Eli Amrit, but says the Gemara, according to other tzad, if the case was what? If the case was the Adre, if the case was that each one made the other one, that he made the other one usher, Amai Kaifin Isaiah Menes honest, what did he do wrong? So the Gemara proves that what must the case in the Mishnah be? The case must be Nadur. The case was that I answered myself, and therefore we have no raya to our Shaila. What was our Shaila? Our Shaila was, what is the halacha if I make you usher? The Gemara does not prove the Shaila. But instead of that, the Gemara goes back to fundamentally in the Mishnah, and Amar Rabba, Amar Ziri, comes the Rabba in the name of Ziri, and he says, Machlokes. The machlokes in the Mishnah is sheyesh ba kedei chaluka. And anyone who learned the Ran in the Mishnah already really learned this piece of Gemara, as the Ran in the Mishnah quoted extensively what we're about to learn. Says the Gemara, the machlokes in the Mishnah is dafka sheyesh ba kedei chaluka, that the field is big enough that we could divide the field. What does that mean? The field is large enough that we each get 4 amos and 4 amos for our Pesach. If the field is of such a size, that's when there's a machlokes in the Mishnah. That's when the Rabbanan said you're not allowed to go into the field. Why? Because ein breira. Say the Rabbanan, you never know. Meaning, let's explain a drop deeper. Why ein breira? Because what's going on over here? Me and you are partners. The field is big enough to one day split it up. So one day we're going to split it up. So if today I walk into the field, says Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. So today we view it as if that part of your field is yours. But the Rabbanan say back, no way. Because one day we're going to split this field and that's not going to actually be mine. So in a scenario of Yesh Kedei Chaluka, there is a large enough field to divide. That's the case where we have a machlokes in the Mishnah, says the Gemara. Aval, top line and Vavam and base. Aval ein ba kedei chaluka. If it's not such a big field, Tivri Akol Mutter, says the Gemara. Everyone would agree to Rav Elazar ben Yaakov that Yesh Breira, and you can enter into the field. Because since the field will never be divided, what's the big deal to say Yesh Breira? Step number 1 of the Gemara. Amar le Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is not happy with such a scenario. Hare, says Rav Yosef in Hebrews. Beis HaKnesses says, every case of a shul, Dekamish ein ba kidei chalukah dami. Regardless how big the shul is, it's as if there's not enough to split up. Why? Even if you have a massive shul, a shul is by nature owned by the constituents, owned by the misbalim, and a shul can't be divvied up, will never be split up. Utanan, and yet, even though a shul will never be split up, what do we learn? Shnei masurin. But Davar Shalosh Seir, the Mishnah teaches that when we have a shul and there's a neder hana, the halacha is you cannot get benefit. So what do we see? We see that even in a scenario where it will never be split up, yet the Rabbanan are still arguing and they're still holding to their guns of Ein Breira, and therefore you're not allowed to enter. So what is going on? Rabbah just came along and Rabbah Amar Ziri tried to prove the Mishnah is only Yesh B'Kidei Chalukah, but we see clearly the Rabbanan argue even when there will never be a Chalukah. El Amar Rav Yosef Amar Ziri. Rather, Gemara retracts and concludes, Machloek is the exact opposite. When do they argue? When does Rav Elazar ben Yaakov say you're yes allowed to enter the field? She'ein b'kedei chalukah, where it'll never be split up. That's when there is an opinion. That's when there is a Rav Elazar ben Yaakov that says yesh breira. Aval yesh b'kedei chalukah. If one day it's going to be split up, they're akol. Also, the reverse of the Mishnah. In that case, even Rav Elazar ben Yaakov will be maskim to the Rabbanan that it is also. And Amar Rav Huna. What's the halachic Rav Elazar ben Yaakov the yesh breira, and you could yes enter the field. The chinam Rav Elazar halachic Rav Elazar ben Yaakov that we do say breira. We'll pick it up from the next case in the Mishnah the next year. B'siyata dishmaya.